Restaurants and cafes, are you charging VAT correctly? The first thing to consider when we look at VAT on food is whether it is in fact catering or not. If it's catering, it is always a flat 20%. Catering includes catering for events and functions and the preparation of ready-made food for said events and functions. Anything that is classed as catering is 20% VAT. There are no exceptions to that rule. Catering does not include cooking fresh food, reheating cooked food, and arranging food on plates. Then we need to look at whether it is eaten on your premises. If it's eaten on your premises, that has chairs and tables adjacent to it. That does not mean a public seating area or an airport lounge, for instance. It is always a flat 20%. The next thing we need to consider is takeaway food. If the food's hot, 20%. However, there are some caveats to this. Many people will have heard of the pasty tax. The pasty tax had something to do with Greggs and the way that they zero rated their pasties. Greggs argued that their pasties should be zero rated because they were not preparing them as hot food, but the heat was as a result of having cooked them and them cooling down. There was a law that was then overturned, but is now back in place, that if there is any food that has been cooked, ready to be eaten, but not kept warm, that is zero rated. Food heated to order is not zero rated, that's 20%. If food is kept hot under a heater, again, 20%. Any food that is left to cool down can be zero rated. There are certain items that always attract 20% VAT. An example of this is ice cream, all confectionery, alcoholic beverages, a load of other beverages such as energy drinks, bottled water, fizzy drinks are all 20% VAT. Other examples of food items that are 20% VAT include potato chips, crisps, peanuts, anything savoury. However, if they are made out of a fruit or vegetable, they are zero rated. For example, lentil crisps. There are some nuances around the 20% VAT. This is where everyone gets incredibly confused around this topic. For instance, anything chocolate is 20%, whereas if you had a vanilla biscuit next to it, that would be zero rated. Indian, Pakistani, and Japanese delicacies, all zero rated. Candied apples, another one that is zero rated. For more examples, please visit our website where you'll see a complete list of exceptions to the standard rated rule. When it comes to takeaways, it's important to know the difference between whether it's zero rated or 20%. For instance, coffee, because it is hot and it's made to be hot, is 20%. However, if you had to take an iced coffee, because it is cold, it will be zero rated. The same applies to food. If you had to buy a warm pasty, for instance, that had been heated to serve versus a cold pasty, the warm pasty would be 20%, the cold pasty would be zero rated. People often wonder when you go to a coffee shop, for instance, why they ask whether it's take out or eat in. It's because of the VAT. If you are to take out an iced coffee, that would be zero rated. If you are to eat in, that would be 20% because everything eaten is 20% flat rate. It's incredibly important that cafes and restaurants are charging the correct amount of VAT, so we would suggest getting an EPOS system that can cope with the different VAT rates for eat-in, take-out and zero rated items.